And while on her campaign trail, Chrystia Freeland promised to cap profit margins for grocers on essential items. Ms. Freeland's plan to lower food prices represents a key part of the cost of living issue that plagued her for much of her time as finance minister under Justin Trudeau. She also plans to outlaw shrinkflation, the practice of making containers slightly smaller so consumers don't notice they're paying the same for less. Dalhousie University's Dr. Sylvain Charlebois has more on her announcement.
First of all, gross margins are pretty stable. Net margins are incredibly slim in the industry. So to cap anything in the industry would probably force grocers to reconsider stores, the existence of some stores. They may actually decide to just close them, some of them, because some of them actually aren't making money at all. And so if you are to cap anything, you're basically forcing grocers to make really harsh decisions, and that could actually decrease competition and not increase it. Now, in Ms. Freeland's policy, she's also targeting products as well. Same thing. If you're basically capping certain prices, then you're basically discouraging investments. You're discouraging companies from going into that business. And of course, some of the staples she's aiming at is supply management in Canada. Well, supply management is farm gate regulated, and so you would see that pressure coming from upstream, focusing on grocers, and grocers would find it very hard to carry any of these products unless they're committed to carry these products as loss leaders only. Eventually, that's the problem with such a policy, a targeted policy around products in particular, especially when they're supply managed. You can always add some regulations around shrinkflation, and I do admit that it's probably the one thing that annoys a lot of Canadians. They do not like shrinkflation at all, but the reality is that companies do shrinkflate a product due to higher input costs, and often they're sudden input costs. Cocoa, sugar, sodium, wheat. We've seen most food categories being impacted by shrinkflation over the years, and they do that basically to remain competitive. Now, if you are to say make shrinkflation illegal, then you basically are forcing companies to increase prices overall. And so that's one thing. Secondly, I do think there are some positives to shrinkflation. It gets people to buy less food. I would say, if there is one thing we can settle with shrinkflation is this whole issue of taxation at retail. The problem with shrinkflation, which I think is probably the most significant one, is that some products are food products, but because of shrinkflation, they become snacks, and snacks are taxable. So a lot of the times Canadians don't realize that they now buy a product that is taxable at retail, and that adds an extra 5 to 15% on products, and they often don't even realize it. And to me, that's certainly one thing I would deal with, is to stop taxing food at retail because in part of shrinkflation.